Good evening, barflies and lounge lizards, and tonight we'll be taking a look at The Fiend Folio by TSR for Advanced Dungeons & Dragons. And I must apologize again for the Band-Aid. Bryn from Horror Hands smashed my hand with a monkey statue because he said I was getting too out of line. But this is the original first release of it from, I think it was 81. And what the Fiend Folio was actually kind of a monster manual, but the bulk of the creatures within came from White Dwarf magazine from the UK. And let me tell you, I loved some Dungeons & Dragons stuff as a kid. It started with the LJN toy line, and then the cartoon, and then just the books and magazines, anything Dungeons & Dragons related I wanted to get my hands on. But I didn't actually know a single person that played, so I would just basically collect the books, the monster manuals in particular, just to look at all the cool artwork and illustrations. And got a cut out of that one. I didn't do it. I bought this used. Just the cool stuff, and I would just read the different profiles and all the stats, which most of I didn't know what they meant, but even still, I just had a great time with this stuff. Oh, let me move this over a bit. And now this one, I didn't get this when it first came out, because in 81 I was 3, something like that, but I found it much later, actually in the 90s, and a late night gaming place opened in my tiny little hometown across the street from my creepy little private school I went to in 7th and 8th grade. And I went in one day and they had the used version of this for sale for, I think it was under $10 even, and I snatched that right up. Alright, let's get right into it. But man, I just love this old school black and white, just this artwork, just the style of it. I actually flipped through a modern monster manual a little while back at a bookstore. I don't remember if it was 4th edition or 5th edition, but it was so stylized and polished, and the artwork almost looked like something from a YA novel. It was just so far removed from what I consider the aesthetic of D&D that I never really looked into it again. I just kind of stick with now the OSR type stuff. But yeah, to me, the look of D&D is like this dark, this gritty, these characters, they actually look fearsome and scary and cool. And I won't go through the entire book because it's probably going to be a super boring filler video to begin with. So, yep. Look at this guy, this apparition. And like I said, I would just take these books and just sit for hours on end looking through the different stats. And even though I said I didn't get this one until the early 90s, a buddy of mine had this in elementary school, and I would just sit at my desk and just look and be amazed at stuff like the Babbler. Like, I always thought he was cool because it was like kind of a T-Rex, but without the tiny little T-Rex arms. Look at him eating this guy here. That's probably what Bryn has in store for me next if I don't get back in line. Yeah, jumping back, the assassin bug. I mean, yeah, you don't get much creepier than a bug that's an assassin, right? Barbalang, I always thought he was really cool. Yeah, I'll just kind of point out the ones in particular that tickled my fancy. Like this guy, the Blindheim. Look at that, he's like an upright frog, almost like a bullywog, with headlight eyes. I mean, come on, how cool is that? Oh, speaking of the bullywog, not bullywog. How that's embarrassing. Bunyip. The Caterwall. I always thought this guy was kind of cool because I always kind of dug shape-shifting type stuff, werecats in particular, and this guy wasn't like a werecat, but such a humanoid-looking cat. I always thought that was really cool. And I just love these. I mean, I'm always talking about, not always, but I started recently always talking about line work, and just look at the line work. Hopefully you can see that well with this reflection, but that's just a great illustration. I like this wizard, this old school pointy-hatted wizard here, just zapping that dude in the face. He's like, face, Crabman. Hey, Crabman. Hi, Earl. You have Dawkin, which is obviously a gorilla with a suitcase, because, of course, Death Knights. Now, I probably had I don't remember if it was the second edition. I have an early monster manual, and that was probably my first. Well, of course, it was my first. I had it years later, but so many of these illustrations and characters or creatures are just so burned into my memory as to what the definitive look of said characters. Oh, this is Loth, Demon Queen of Spiders. See, back then I wasn't familiar with Drow or Forgotten Realms or any of that good stuff. Now looking back, it's like, oh yeah, there's Loth. Even though I always imagined Loth being a little more, not centaur, spider tar, kind of like that, like a Drider kind of thing. And this was one of my favorite sections as a kid, the dragons, especially these Asian style dragons. Like I always liked that celestial dragon style. I remember I had a rubber one of those as a kid, and my light fell. I always thought this guy was kind of cool too, like an evil mermaid almost. And then this Dune Stalker guy, that's actually kind of looks like me without hair. That's what I grew up to be, I guess. And then we have the Drow. Look at that short hair on the Drow. That's so used to them all having the long hair nowadays. Another great full-page illustration. Again, I think I've just become a sucker for black and white stuff. It's just years of reading indie comics and the like, and thumbing through stuff like this. There's just, and I know I already said this like 2 minutes ago, but there's just such a grittiness and just something, a feeling to black and white illustration that the color stuff just doesn't, unless it's like nice painted Frazetta kind of stuff that just says fantasy to me. Like the fire toad. I mean, what is cooler than a toad that breathes fire? Not a flail snail, I'll tell you that much. But no one likes the flail snail anyway. And then we have the Githyanki, which, as you see, is the guy here on the cover, which is clearly what happens when a neutrino from TMNT dies. Comes a Githyanki. Very sad. That's fact, too. More Githyanki. Poor neutrinos. As I was saying earlier in the video, like a long, long time ago, if you can remember that far back, many of these came from White Dwarf magazine, and they were submissions from fans. The Grell. And this is one I actually had in the LJN line of, I think it was one of these, one of the bendy ones of this guy. Even though I seem to remember the figure itself had eyes. Or maybe I'm remembering incorrectly. Gorble. I always like this guy. I mean, he just looks like he wants to be friends. Look at this guy just overreacting. Grimlock. Morlock. Grimlock. The Hook Horror. That was another absolute favorite of mine as a kid. I had the LJN figure of that one. And yeah, I played with that thing actually until his arms literally just fell off. And I would stick them back on and play with him some more, and his arms would fall off again. It was a whole thing. And the Horfox. If I had a nickel for every time I've been called that. Oh, there's the neighbor's air conditioning. And that's why I never like to film out here anymore. Oh, I'm filming this 2 days after Christmas. It's cold outside. Why is there AC on? And that's a nice illustration there as well. You know, I've always been kind of a sucker for little mini monsters, mini creatures, stuff like ghoulies and gremlins and Troll, the original Troll. I mean, I like Troll 2 as well, but the monsters in the first Troll movie, and I'm getting very off topic here, but yeah, very cool. I just like mini monsters. Oh, this guy, this is a very Them's Fighting Owls friendly character. He's kind of looks like a monk type bird. Uh-oh, getting a little PG-13 there. This was actually this was one of my favorite illustrations in this book as a youngster, as a lad. Very Conan-esque, or at least that's what it always reminded me of. Like, it looked like just something straight out of Robert E. Howard's world. And these lava children, look how friendly they look fighting this Lizard King. I mean, they all got big old smiles on their faces. Then we have the Measle here. This guy always kind of reminded me of the Githyanki. Very similar. Maybe they were related. The Meanlock, I always thought this was really, really good illustration, really interesting type character. Let's see, he is lawful evil and only 2 feet tall. Yeah, see, when I was looking at these stats as a kid and really didn't really understand them at all, I would basically just look at their intelligence, their alignment, and their size. Even though, to be fair, even with the alignments, things are different, the lawful evil and things of that nature. I didn't know what that meant. And I always liked in this one too, because there were some really wacky, quirky enemies, like the Sheet Phantom. I mean, there is just nothing you want to fight less than your bed sheets. And this section right here is another one I spent many hours looking over, and that's the Slod section. I mean, they're basically just cool toad frog type people, and anyone who watches this channel or knows me knows I kind of like frogs. And I would just always kind of go back and forth as to which was my favorite. The green fella here was always kind of charming, but the blue, pretty interesting as well. You guys have the Snurflabblin, the deep gnomes. The Tabaxi, the Catman, is another one I always thought was cool. Like I said, I always just kind of leaned toward changing type things or animal type people. I always thought those were neato. And then the troll section. I remember the LJN troll figure was one I really wanted, and I eventually got him. And yeah, I really liked that Joker a lot. And now we're out of the actual monsters themselves into the tables in the back with another really good illustration there. But see how fierce this guy looks? That's just something I feel is missing and stuff these days. Adventurers always look too happy or too smirky, too cocky. I don't know what it is. I know, I'm an old man saying old man things. A lot of old man things have been said in this video. I had to go stand outside in the yard and shake my fist at all these whippersnapper D&D players today. I actually did do that twice last week, but who's counting? But yeah, that was just a very quick... Oh, there's the Slod. Slad? Is it Slod? I'm sure someone's going to tell me. And tell me how badly I've been pronouncing these names. I guess they saved some of the more, rough illustrations for the tables back here. Oh, that's a cool one too. But yeah, so that was just a quick kind of flip through, even though looking at the time here, this has been looking like about 15 minutes. So not too quick flip through. All right, and that is the Fiend Folio. I appreciate anyone who made it all the way to the end of this boring video. And if you did actually happen to like it and want to see more, let me know, because I have a couple more of these gaming type books that I could flip through and show you and talk about. But that's all the time we have this week. Please like, comment, subscribe, and keep it wacky.
Wow.